PTF and JK back with you on the In the Money Media YouTube channel. Preakness Takeaways. We've got 5 of them, and we've got a lot more coverage, not just looking back at the Preakness on the YouTube channel, but also great stuff looking forward to the Belmont Stakes. Make sure you do a couple things. Subscribe to the channel. That helps us out immensely. New goal, 14,000 subscribers by Belmont Stakes Day. Also, get involved in the conversation. Let us know below what your biggest Preakness takeaways are. We start with the master of the obvious, JK. Number 1, journalism is a stud, and I mean that literally.
Yeah, I mean, he was outstanding. Like we watch a lot of races, and I know how you felt. We talked right after when he got into that trouble and he finally came clear. He looked like there was a 0% chance he was still going to get there. And I watch a lot of races. I know a lot of angles. I know the depth perception. I've felt it. I've been excited. I've been disappointed. I know when a horse has a chance, and I thought he had 0 chance. I actually turned and kind of walked away from the TV thinking, here we go. This awesome horse got this horrible trip. And then I turned back around, and he really started reaching. And within about 4 or 5 jumps, you're like, oh, man, he might actually make this close. 2 jumps later, you're like, oh, man, he's going to win. I thought it was one of the most visually deceiving performances in the terms of like where I thought there's no way, and then he got there.
In running betting, that's a thing that exists internationally. You can bet on these races while they're happening on trading screens like Wall Street. Top price for journalism, 159 to 1. I wouldn't have even taken it. Let's move on to number 2. You talked about the trip, JK. I think we have to say this. Watching live, I thought maybe journalism and Rispoli were victims of goal-oriented coming in on him with repeated watches of the replay, talking to Nick Tamaro in another video. I don't think that's right. I think this is a case where he won despite the ride. Don't want to be unfair to my countryman, Umberto Rispoli, of whom I'm a big fan, but maybe not one for his Hall of Fame plaque, if you know what I mean.
Look, if we treat this like a race on a Thursday at Aqueduct and you're on an even money shot, I'd actually say that journalism was probably a little bit less than an even money shot. He was probably 4 to 5, but because it's a Preakness Day, you're getting a little extra value. You're on a 4 to 5 shot, an odds-on horse. Let's not try to get too cute. Let's not try to go through holes that maybe may or may not be there. Let's take the overland route. Let's stay in the clear with a horse that we know is fit, we know can finish, we know can get the distance. Let's not be so cute. It's one of those situations where if he goes around all those horses, he wins by 5, based on what we saw him do, instead of winning by a half a length in a desperate situation, one of the most desperate we've ever seen. Look, I appreciate the fact that Umberto wants to try to check all the boxes in terms of making sure he gives his horse the best chance to win. But I think he's seeing it through the wrong lens, thinking that tucking this monster in and saving ground gives him his best chance. He did it in the San Diego Derby too. Let's just keep him in the clear and let him run.
That might be the strategy come Belmont at Saratoga. We shall see. Hopefully he ends up in the gate there. It's going to be an amazing race should we get Derby and Preakness winner facing off. Number 3, Kentucky Derby horses run pretty well in the Preakness.
They do. They always do. Now, I'm a believer in let's just leave it like it is, and that being the Triple Crown. Sometimes you're going to get horses that skip. Sometimes you're not. But that's what keeps it exciting, keeps it interesting. The day after the Derby, you're waiting and hoping and anxious that the Derby winner runs. And when he does, you're excited. And you have a week and a half, 2 weeks of excitement leading up to it. And occasionally you'll have one win and we'll be drawing live for a Triple Crown. It might not happen every year, but I do think it is something that we want to keep the same. Horses run well back in 2 weeks if they ran well in the Derby. Their form is there. Their form is there. And we've seen it over and over and over again. Sure, you could pluck a couple of situations where that hasn't been the case, but it's also questioning how good some of those horses that didn't show up actually were. And maybe some individuals, it does take a lot out of them. But I think as a whole, horses that run well in the Derby run well in the Preakness.
I've been the great flip-flopper on this issue of spacing out the races, and I'm a big believer that from a storytelling point of view, here's the end goal I want. I want the same horses running in all 3 races. And for a while, it's looked to me like you have to move Muhammad to the mountain. But maybe it can be the other way. Maybe the mountain can come to Muhammad. Maybe we can convince some of the trainers of this idea and incentivize them financially. Hey, these are the 3 races you need to run in. These are the 3 days established on the calendar that get these massive handles. What can we do to make you want to run horses more in them? Maybe that's the conversation we need to have as far as moving the races goes.
Yeah, but I also think that like there was 19 horses that ran in the Derby. I think maybe there was 1 or 2 that would have skipped the Preakness. I think maybe if Baeza would have won, I can see John Sheriff's being conservative and skipping. Maybe if Sovereignty won, obviously he would have. Journalism would have ran. 100% he would have ran.
Clearly.
And I think that a horse like Owen Almighty, who was 5th, would have run. A horse like Final Gambit, who was 4th, I think probably would have run. I think that there's circumstances to it. So let's not become too results oriented.
Let's go to our final conclusion, our final takeaway from the Preakness, JK. We have a heck of a rivalry brewing on our hands now, don't we?
Oh, I think we do. It feels a little, it's a little different, but it feels a little Street Sense Curlin, right? Street Sense won the Derby, came back in the Preakness, and Curlin won. Unfortunately, Street Sense didn't run in the Belmont, but you're still getting these 2 superstars. Now we've got 2 superstars. I would have loved to have seen them run last weekend and be alive for potentially a Triple Crown. But now we're going to see them Belmont Day, where we're hopefully going to have these 2 superstars running against one another. And that's exciting. I think that's what the sport needs. And I think that although a Triple Crown would have been great, I'll settle for 2 really good horses locking horns in what could be an outstanding Belmont Stakes.
You talk about rivalries. I think to my favorite of all time. It's obviously a little different, but the horse came up in conversation around my house yesterday because Perrin was saying, "Oh, do you think my 12-year-old daughter, do you think journalism will go and win the Belmont? And wouldn't that be something?" He'd be like the modern day Sunday Silence. She says to me.
Nailed it.
I've trained her well. Let's face it. But yeah, it does make you think about those great rivalries and how special racing is when you get to see it. Not quite putting these 2 in the Sunday Silence easy goer category just yet, but wouldn't it be something if they face off at Belmont at Saratoga and then come back for a race like the Breeders' Cup? There you have it, folks. Those are our takeaways for this year's Preakness Stakes. Make sure you subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel and leave us a comment with your takeaways.